Seeds can grow into plants long after a seed is formed. Would you believe that an Arctic lupine seed, more than 10,000 years old, grew into a flower when it was finally planted?
Johann Sebastian Bach might not have made it to outer space, but his music has. The second concerto from Bach's Brandenburg Concertos is part of the collection of music on board the Voyager spacecraft.
Pigs don't roll around in the mud because they want to be dirty. They do it to protect their skin from the sun. Mud is like sunscreen to a pig, and it also helps to keep pigs cool in hot weather.
Johann Sebastian Bach's Brandenburg Concertos were also called 6 concertos for several instruments, because each one was written to be played by different instruments. People stay healthy and grow by eating things like fruits and vegetables, but since plants can't eat food, they count on the sun's rays. The energy from the sun mixes with the water in the air to make food that helps the plant grow. When that happens, it's called photosynthesis.
Just because it's cloudy outside doesn't always mean it's going to rain. Only certain clouds, like nimbostratus and cumulonimbus, have drops of water that turn into raindrops.
Vincent van Gogh loved the way ancient olive trees looked so much that he made more than a dozen different paintings of them. Vincent van Gogh painted his famous painting, The Olive Trees, in 1889, the same year that the Eiffel Tower in Paris opened to the public.
Ludwig van Beethoven wrote his famous composition Für Elise in 1810, the same year that composer Robert Schumann was born.
Edvard Munch painted his famous painting, The Scream, in 1893, the same year that the first Flag Day was celebrated in the United States.
If planet Earth were to have a sister, it would be Venus. Even though there is no water on Venus, both Venus and Earth are about the same size, mass, and density.
Uranus is sometimes called the blue planet, but its surface isn't actually blue. Uranus looks blue because of the way the sunlight is absorbed in its atmosphere. If you look at Mars through a telescope, you'll see that it looks red. Mars gets its red color from the soil, which is full of reddish-colored iron oxides. If you lived on Mercury, you'd be either really hot or really cold all the time. The side of Mercury facing the sun is more than 700 degrees Fahrenheit, while the side away from the sun is more than 200 degrees below freezing.
If you lived on Saturn, the classic bedtime story, Goodnight Moon, would have to be changed to Goodnight Moons. That's because Saturn has 18 different moons.
You might have known that Jupiter is the largest planet in the solar system. But did you know that it's so big you could fit 318 planet Earths inside of it?
Neptune is sometimes called the windy planet because winds there can reach more than 1,200 miles per hour. That's more than 4 times the strongest winds ever recorded on Earth. While other planets may have ice on them, The Earth is the only planet in the solar system that has water on the surface in the form of oceans and seas.
The Bayeux Tapestry is one piece of art that wouldn't fit in your living room. Although the Bayeux Tapestry is less than 2 feet high, it is 230 feet long. That's more than half the length of a football field.
Before a person could become a knight in the Middle Ages, he had to spend 14 years training as a page and a squire. Even though drawbridges didn't become popular until the Middle Ages, when they were used to cross moats, one of the oldest drawbridges was built more than 4,000 years ago in ancient Egypt.
Edvard Grieg's Morning Mood from the Peer Gynt Suite No. 1 has been heard in many movies and TV shows.
Even though nobody knows for sure who created the Bayeux Tapestry, historians believe it was created more than 900 years ago by many different people working together. Edvard Grieg composed Morning Mood from the Peer Gynt Suite No. 1 in 1876, the same year that Alexander Graham Bell made the world's first telephone call. The Bayeux Tapestry isn't actually a tapestry at all. A tapestry is a woven cloth, but the Bayeux Tapestry is an embroidered cloth.
What do knights and firefighters have in common? The armor of a medieval knight weighed 50 pounds. That's about the same weight as a firefighter's coat, hat, boots, and gear.
Georges Bizet was born in 1838 in Paris, France. That's the same year that Samuel Morse showed his telegraph invention to the public for the first time.
Basket weaving is one of the oldest Native American crafts there is. Navajo baskets are usually made from yucca fibers that are coiled around in a black, white, and red pattern. Did you know that cactuses have sunglasses? The thousands of spines on a cactus shade different parts of the plant as the sun moves across the sky, just like a pair of sunglasses.
The Grand Canyon was one of the first national parks in America. And while today you'll find it full of tourists, hundreds of years ago, Native Americans lived in the canyon.
The first steam train to ever ride on a commercial railroad track was named Tom Thumb. Tom Thumb took its first railroad voyage in 1830.
What was it that made the West so wild? Back when American settlers were exploring the frontier, the Wild West was what they called the part of the country that hadn't been settled yet.
Navajo baskets are used for things like holding special objects and food. They might also be flipped over and used as a drum.
L'Arcienne isn't just the name of a musical suite by Georges Bizet and the play he wrote the music for. It's also the name of one of Vincent van Gogh's paintings.
Antonin Dvorak was from Eastern Europe, but he moved to America where he taught music to students who eventually became music teachers to Duke Ellington and George Gershwin.
painter John Singer Sargent worked from dusk to dawn and hardly ever took any days off from painting. From 1877 and 1925, he painted almost 3,000 paintings.
There are 7 special musical bells in the top of the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and each one is tuned to one of the 7 notes of the scale. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti.
Antonin Dvorak was born in Czechoslovakia in 1841, the same year that the first wagon train of settlers arrived in California.
Before he started painting landscapes, John Singer Sargent was one of the most popular portrait painters in the world. He painted portraits of lots of famous people, like President Woodrow Wilson and author Robert Louis Stevenson. Can a house made of snow and ice really keep an Eskimo warm? Believe it or not, the inside of an igloo is as warm as 55 degrees Fahrenheit, even if it's freezing outside. If you lived in Venice, Italy, you wouldn't need a car, but you would need a boat. Venice is a city made up of small islands connected by more than 150 water canals. John Singer Sargent must have had a very steady hand. He loved painting his Venice watercolors while sitting on boats in the canal.